Let's now bring in Democratic Senator Alex Padilla of California. He is a member of the Budget Committee, also ranking member of both the Rules Committee and the Judiciary Immigration Subcommittee. Also joining us for the conversation, NBC News national affairs analyst and a partner and chief political columnist at Puck, John Heilman, and co-founder and CEO of All In Together, Lauren Leader. Our thanks to all of you for being with us, Senator, in particular you. So let's start with the situation there in Texas, this battle over redistricting. You know, these lawmakers are in your home state now, in California. Your governor has said that, look, if you redraw Texas, we'll do the same here. We'll dramatically increase potentially the number of Democratic seats. Talk to us about just how precarious political moment this seems to be for everybody.
Right, no, and I guess precarious is a very good word. So let's actually put this into a bigger context, because it's not just about redistricting. And, you know, ideal scenario, Texas just stands down, and this doesn't go beyond that. How bad must it be? How bad must Trump and Republicans in Congress feel about their chances next November, right? You usually run on a legislative record of accomplishment, but their accomplishments have been what? Giving tax breaks to billionaires, cutting health care, trying to destroy federal government as we know it, that their only chance of holding on to power in the midterms is to rig the election. The redistricting is just one piece. If you look at Trump's executive orders, if you look at legislation that Republicans have tried to push through Congress to make it harder for people to register to vote, to stay on the rolls, to cast their ballot, and then you couple that with what the Department of Justice is doing, trying to demand personal information of all voters in states across the country as a pretext for their voter purging. I mean, it's a perfect storm of rigging next November's election. So it's not just a redistricting fight in isolation. It's part of this desperate, hold on power.
So, Senator, in this last week or so, since the story in Texas really moved to the forefront, I've talked to a lot of Democrats, and they seem to be of two minds here. Many of them are sort of have really prided themselves as being the party that plays by the rules, that's saying, look, this is how the system should work. You know, that to your point, if Texas were to stand down, none of this would happen. We should move back to where things were. And are queasy about changing the game, say in California and other blue states. But there are others who say, look, Republicans have changed the rules, in their words, cheated long enough. It's time to fight fire with fire. Where do you come down on this? What do your constituents say?
Look, I'm in the fight fire with fire camp. Again, ideal scenario, Texas stands down. But look at the stakes are just so high with what this administration is trying to do beyond the limits of their power. And there's no longer a check and balance, right? Congress is a co-equal branch of government. The Republican majority in both the House and the Senate is negligent in their responsibility of providing the oversight and accountability to this administration. That's why the administration has lost so many court cases, and either they're appealing or disregarding those rulings. And so unless or until Republicans in Congress stand up, we have to do everything we can. I mean, we're in the minority right now, using every legislative and procedural lever we can. God bless the Democrats in the Texas legislature for going through those extreme steps of breaking quorum to keep the redistricting effort from happening. But in communities across the country, we know there's organizing happening and preparations for the midterm election. So everybody's trying to do their part.
So, Lauren, it's hard to see if there really was a widespread redistricting war. It's hard to see that being good for democracy inherently. But that's not what this is. That's not Donald Trump's not thinking that. President Trump is thinking, I need to keep the control of the House so I don't get impeached again.
Well, right, and because he can't accomplish anything if he doesn't keep the majority, and it was so incredibly close. And in fact, California, as we talk about potential redistricting in California had some of the closest seats in the country in the last two cycles. Senator, when you look at polling over the last number of years that have asked Americans what they think of redistricting, most Americans sort of have a pretty vague idea of what it means. They don't really know it. I mean, I'm always amazed at how many of my very well-informed friends don't know what gerrymandering is, really. So given how much else Democrats have to talk about to the American people, as you say, sort of prosecuting the failures of the Big Beautiful Bill, how do you talk about redistricting in a way that Americans are even going to understand. I mean, it's hard to feel like it's the most important thing right now, given how much else is at stake. But certainly many Democrats seem to feel it is, and it could be.
Right, and it's usually not on anybody's mind, but for once every 10 years, right? We go through this exercise after the census using reliable data. But I do think people know, hey, the political stakes are high enough, and Republicans are trying to rig the system. They're trying to rig the rules by which next November's elections are going to play out. That is visceral because they see what Republicans are doing, cutting access to health care. They see what Republicans are doing with, the Trump administration specifically on this unconstitutional, indiscriminate immigration raids that we see, especially in California. And all for what? Just tax breaks for billionaires? Their agenda is so unpopular. They know it. The American public knows it, and that's why the fight is on for next November.
John Hammond, it does seem this very quickly has become a storyline with significant stakes.
Yeah, huge stakes, John, and I think you can see it has stakes that go from the questions of the representation in the United States Congress all the way up to presidential politics. It's not hard to see Governor Abbott and Governor Newsom both as guys who are fighting or laying down markers for presidential runs down the line. Senator Padilla, I got two questions for you. One's real practical. And one's a little bit more. About principle. The practical one is there's been a lot of discussion in the last couple of days about the possibility of the FBI being deployed to try to bring these Texas lawmakers home. Governor Pritzker in Illinois said the FBI has no authority, and we are not going to turn over these Texas lawmakers. That's not going to happen in our state. Is that the posture you think that California should also adopt? That the FBI doesn't have any authority, and that California will protect these legislators if the FBI does come for them?
Well, look, FBI, really? I mean, it's just the latest example of Donald Trump weaponizing the federal government, not just the Department of Justice, but the FBI specifically to pursue his political agenda. To justify the FBI, what's been the federal crime? Has anybody said that a federal crime has been committed by anyone, let alone all of these Texas legislators? They're going to bat for their constituents is what they're doing. Donald Trump doesn't like that. And as we have seen, he'll do anything to try to quelch dissent or anybody who disagrees with him or his agenda.
So a senior FBI official who briefly served as acting director at the start of President Trump's current term has been fired with no explanation. That's according to two federal law enforcement sources. That official, Brian Driscoll, has made headlines when he resisted a Justice Department directive to turn over a list of agents who had worked on January 6th cases. The request for those names came from then Deputy Attorney General Emil Bovee, who wrote in a memo that the list would be reviewed for any firing or, quote, personnel actions. Driscoll's resistance has made him a hero within the rank-and-file members of the FBI, where there were fears that the list would be used to purge the FBI of agents who worked on January 6 cases. Driscoll had been with the agency for almost 20 years. His firing was disclosed in an email to his colleagues, which was read to NBC News. The FBI declined to comment. So, Senator, your thoughts on how things are playing out here?
Yeah, look, not shocked. We've seen it coming, and this isn't the first instance of this disregard for justice and the independence, historic independence of the Department of Justice. I'm a member of the Judiciary Committee, and we've had a ton of confirmation hearings through the first half of this calendar year. New administration's coming in. Who should be the Attorney General? Who should be the Deputy Attorney General? Who should be the FBI Director? And now Emil Bovee and other Trump nominees for judicial positions, district courts, appellate courts. Their refusal to these nominees to answer direct questions from Democrats, they danced around even something as simple as, will you uphold the rule of law? What would you do if Donald Trump asked you to do something illegal or unconstitutional? We know this was coming when Republicans in the Senate are just rubber stamping all these nominees. So it's sadly not a surprise. The American public needs to take note and keep this in mind when we go to the ballot next November.
So is that where the recourse is, at the ballot? And what is it that you and your colleagues can do to amplify this and make sure people fully understand what you see as playing out here? What else can you do?
Yeah, look, it's an all of the above approach. Again, in the Senate, again, leveraging what we can to try to slow things down. I mean, when the Republican majority in the Judiciary Committee was refusing to even debate or discuss issues about the Epstein files, for example, or to let whistleblowers come testify before voting on nominees. At one point, Democrats walked out of the committee to break quorum just to help highlight Republicans turning a blind eye to all these dangers, all these red flags. So there's the inside baseball in Congress. We're working with partners around the country, not just attorneys general, but other organizations to bring forth lawsuits when appropriate. So I got to imagine, unjustified firings within the Department of Justice, people have their rights to defend from their employment, and that'll rear its head. And yes, calling attention to it by every means, organizing communities around the country, because the November midterms are going to be here before we know it.
Democratic Senator Alex Padilla of California, thank you very much for coming on the show this morning.